Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's My Games Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're going to be talking about how ditching 360s can lead to gain you profit and an easier life, which we all want. It's very exciting. And of course, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mike Ames. How are you doing today, Mike?
With a white streak on my hair where the sun is just catching me and I can't not make it happen, which is weird. Yes, I'm pleased to be here. And you're back then, sicky person that you were.
I am. It was the vid, it got me. I do sound like I've been smoking 20 cigarettes a day. I apologize for that. And I promise you that if I do cough, I will try and mute myself before I do. So if you see me like leaning away, it's because I'm coughing. So, yeah.
Oh, and don't worry, everybody. I know what you're thinking. She thought she was taking it as sick, but we actually accounted it as a holiday when she was off. So that's fine. Don't worry about a thing.
We get unlimited holiday. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I know, yeah, but it was funny just to say that. I thought.
Oh, yeah, well, okay. All right. Now, Mike, today we're talking about a subject that's very close to our hearts, which is 360s and ways that you can, other ways of doing stuff than the 360 route. But to begin with, can we just start with why you believe the 360 model is in fact broken?
Okay, so it's perhaps a little strong to say it's broken because there's an implication it doesn't work for anybody. And of course, it does work for some people, and that's fine. But there are problems with 360s. And if you've got a moment to put in the comments, if you are a 360 shop, that would be useful. Just put a 360 or something in it. But the first one is it's really difficult to find good 360s. I mean, it just is, really. They're very hard. I mean, you can find people who say they're 360s and we all get terribly excited about it. They come in and they're salespeople. So what they've sold you ain't necessarily what they are. And it ain't the real deal. It ain't the 360. They're good at this, average at that, and bad at that. It's like, so you've got a model which relies upon the fact that somebody is going to be good at all these things, but you bring in people in that aren't. So you're already stoking up a model that's broken, right? That's not doing what it's going to do and never can, because these people can't do what you want them to do. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, if most of the people who are watching this right now, who own their own business, in fact, again, could you just put a big thumbs up or a big yes? Because I'd like to know. Before you started your own business, were you a good 360, right? Because the chances are you were. You could get clients, you could get vacancies, you could manage clients, and you could find candidates and qualify them, because that's what a 360 does, right? So you could do all of those, and suddenly at some point you thought to yourself, I can do this myself. I don't need them. I can do everything myself. And there's a misguided or a belief that it's easier than it really is. And I think now you run a business, it's not quite as easy as you thought. But nonetheless, the actual recruitment part, the middle bit, you can do it all, right? And in fact, I went had coffee with someone yesterday, face to face, very exciting. And he said that he realized when he was on lockdown that he didn't need his boss because he was on his own most of the time, and his numbers went up rather than down. And that was the turning point, and he then set his own business up. So I think 360 is your breeding competition. The really good ones, you're thinking to yourself, that one there, my star performer, he's going to be a competitor, or she's going to be the next person to leave and set up. So you're going to lose a revenue stream when they go, particularly if it's perm. Mm-hmm. You're a perm outfit, not so much contract, but you're going to lose. They're going to go, and that revenue might not go with them, but it won't stay with you. It's a weird thing, really. And then you've got to replace that before you can grow again. And quite often, the concept of a yo-yo company, we talked about it before.
Yeah, just tell people what it is.
So companies that grow and then they shrink, and they grow and they shrink. It's very common. It's like real common in recruitment. Many times, not exclusively, there are other reasons, but many times it's because a big biller leaves. There was a case, it's going back a few years there, 3 big billers left from the same company to set up on their own. It nearly closed down the business that they left, right? I mean, it's a very risky strategy, I think, 360 in that respect. I think the other thing is right, this is really key point. And we're going to look at this when we look at the alternative. 360s, to be a really good 360, you've got to be very good at a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And statistically, if you've ever done statistics, you've got this bell curve, this standard distribution curve. You apply it to anything where you've got a group of people on a subject, and there's a bell curve, and it's the same for recruitment. In fact, the numbers are rather weird, really, because on average, they reckon there's about 200,000 recruiters in the United Kingdom and about 30,000, roughly 30,000 recruitment companies, give or take, right? Now, if you took a standard distribution curve, you've got 15% underachievers, 15% overachievers, but on these, I never get these numbers right, to be honest with you, but 25% above average, 25% below average, 20% average. Hope that adds up to 100. Right, it looks like that anyway. Well, if you take 15% of 200,000, what is that number, Kirsty? We didn't rehearse this on the spot.
More than 20,000.
30,000, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm not correlating that all the really, really overachievers have started their own business, because it doesn't work like that. But a good percentage of them have. And that tells you, right, that you need to build a business where average people can generate outstanding results for a whole host of reasons. They're much easier to get, much easier to train. It doesn't matter if they're average, because you're going to do great things for them. It's very hard to do that in 360s. Real hard, because there's going to be something, normally BD, that they don't like or they're not good at, so they won't do it. Right. So that's the deal. So, I mean, there are other reasons as well, and we want to talk about the positive sides. But what I'm saying, if I summarize basically, is that they're really hard to get, they're really hard to keep, and if they go, they're going to hurt you.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had a couple of comments, a couple of people saying yes, they're very much 360s. And so definitely there's people watching this for 360s. We've had a question, and Luke, don't think I haven't seen you, but that leads us very nicely to a later thing. So Luke, I've seen you, but I won't bring you up just yet. But Mike, we've obviously spoken a lot about the dangers of 360s and perhaps why it wouldn't work best. So tell me, why is it so popular in the UK? Because I would say that the vast majority of UK recruitment companies are 360s.
A lot of them, yeah. Well, before I answer that question, I did some work for an American company. They're a global company, and they've got companies, groups, they've got companies everywhere. And the CEO is from California, and she came across to this thing I was doing, and she was just amazed that anyone did 360s. In America, they don't do it. It's actually called, the alternative that I'm going to share with you today is called the American model, because it's so popular in America. She was appalled, and she said all the things that we've said. Why would you do that, really? Somebody can't be good at all of those things, can they? It's like, well, preaching to the converted on that one, madam. So I think it's predominant in the UK. And I think mainly the reason it is because most people that start a business came from a 360 background, so that's all they know. That's the deal, right? They know it. They worked in a company that was 360, and that's what they know, so that's what they replicate. But in many cases, it wasn't really a 360 at all. So you look at someone like Michael Page, who's supposed to use 360s, but in many cases, they've got accounts being fed through to them, leads being fed through to them. They've got the whole weight of the marketing department and the marketing budget to put stuff out there so that everybody's heard of Michael Page, right? They've probably got the networks of all the senior people that you can leverage off. They've got connections in the organization that you can get introductions with. So, and you get inbound leads because it's a big name. So inbound leads come in. So there's a perception that you're 360, but in a big company, well, no, but that could be your job role. You move to a small company, none of that exists. There is no big reputation. No one's heard of you. There's less inbound leads. There's not so much of a network. You don't have all the support, the marketing support that you would have in a larger company. And suddenly, if you don't bring the business in, it don't happen. And they're not used to that bringing in the business. So people, I think, do it. And particularly the people that start a business are good at 360. Yeah, they're good at it. And so, well, why isn't everybody like me? Well, I'll tell you, mate, they're not like you, because if they were, they would leave and set up their own business as well. You don't want them to be like you. What you want to do if you want to build a safe business, and I talk about this a lot, you want to build a safe business, a business that's growing that's safe. 360s aren't safe, because if they leave, they're going to damage you. If you're going to build a safe business, you want to build dependencies into your people. And that sounds a bit weird, but you want them to depend upon you or the company for doing certain things for them that make them successful. So if they leave, they can't take these things with them. Therefore, they won't be as successful. Building dependencies into a business makes it safe, right? 360s are not safe because there's less dependency on them. So I think, to summarize that part, mostly people have come from a 360 background or a perceived 360 background, and also they themselves are very good at 360s. So they just think they'll hire a bunch of people like them. No, mate, you're in the 15% at the top. Everybody else is average.
Yeah, I think people very much, especially business owners, tend to underestimate just how special they are and how rare that they can be. So I think that's definitely something that relates. So, okay, Mike, we don't like to focus on the negative things that we don't like. Let's talk about the layered model. Let's talk about what it is first, I think, and then we'll talk a bit about why we like it.
Okay, yeah, right. So the layered model simply means that you take all the functions of recruitment and split them up.
What do you mean?
Now,
Can you just explain what a function is, what you mean by
yeah,
functions?
I will. Yeah, I'm going to take a little time over this because whenever I explain this, I seem to get myself into all sorts of trouble. People misunderstand what I'm saying, and that's my fault, not theirs. I get that.
Mhm.
I'm not talking about roles. Right, so there's six different functions, which I'm going to go through them all with you. I'm not saying you replace one 360 with 6 people. I'm not saying that. It's a 2-step process. Step number 1 is to look at the functions. Step number 2 is to build the roles that you want based upon those functions, right? And I'm going to talk about this later when we talk about implementation. So hold that thought for a minute. Okay, so the functions. Now, these are things that happen in recruitment. The words I'm going to use, you might not use, you might not be familiar with, but you'll certainly know the function, right? Because it's the deal, right? So starting at the bottom and working up. The lowest level are finders. They're people that find candidates that match the skills and experience and requirements that are in the vacancy. Now, the best way to illustrate this is if you use an offshore firm, non-voice, so not ringing people up. What they're actually doing is taking what you give them, they're going to the job boards, they're going to LinkedIn, wherever else they look, and they're finding people and they're basically ticking boxes off. Yep, whatever you've told them to do. And they present those CVs. So the function of finding candidates, whether it's off your database, whether it's off CRM, whether it's off, job boards or LinkedIn, it doesn't matter. There's a finding activity. Okay. And what they're doing is what we used to call level 1, which is called matching now. They're just matching. That's all they're doing. Mm-hmm. Next is qualifiers. So the qualifiers, what they will, well, that function is to say, well, okay, I'm going to do what we call level 1 qualification. I'm going to have a word with this person and say, look, we've got this role. On paper, you look like you're a good match. It's this, and this. Are you interested? I mean, probably a bit better than that.
I would hope.
That's essentially it, right? And then they're going to say, well, okay, this is what we pay. This is where it is. Is this something you're interested in? That's the deal. And what you're looking to do is get rid of people that say, oh, no, that's not for me, or no, I'm happy where I am, or whatever. Those people that clearly, even though they could match on paper, they're not suitable. Right?
Yeah.
Finders, qualifiers. The next one is placers. Now, what placers do effectively is 2 things. They'll do level 2 qualification, and that's where you're trying to effectively remove anybody that's got one thing that's not suitable. In search, it's very common to do that. In recruitment, we're just looking to get people who are there or thereabouts we can submit. In search, if there's one thing that isn't right, off they go. It has to be like that. So there is this level 2 qualification, which is very much about not only is this person suitable for this role, they're also keen to do it.
Yeah, likely to stay once they've been placed, less likely to drop out, less likely to get brought back.
Not subject to a counter offer, and you're okay. So you're stress testing this person, this candidate. It's quite a big thing to do. As I said, more in search than in recruitment, and the bottom end in temps not really at all. But certainly in the top end, the white collar stuff, you've got to stress test the candidate's seriousness about this role as well as their suitability for it, right? So level 1 qualification, level 2. Level 2 is done by the placers. And then what the placers do is actually manage the placement. So submitting the CVs, getting feedback, arranging interviews, yada, doing the negotiations, whatever it is, right? So these aren't roles, these are functions. In the 360, they do all of them, right? Next thing is client care. Now, interestingly about client care, a lot of people think client care. In fact, I've told this story before. I'm not going to tell it in full again, but I was presenting or doing a workshop with a bunch of account managers from a really big firm. You would have heard of them. And I went around and said, well, okay, what's account management? And I was rather disappointed to learn everybody thought it was getting vacancies out of people. That's a bit embarrassing, really, isn't it? Account management is about building and maintaining relationships. That's what account management is, and part of that obviously is getting vacancies. So what the carers do, they're called care. This function is caring. What carers do is they build and maintain relationships with clients, so that not only do you get the vacancies, preferably you get the vacancies ahead of anybody else. And if there's like 2 CVs coming in from you and another agency, and they're pretty much there or thereabouts, they take yours. You want that little edge, really. We called it an apex supplier. So you've got the apex, not somewhere in the middle or at the bottom. Well, that's client care that does that. So the client care function builds and strengthens relationships and moves you closer, if you can, towards being an apex supplier. So far we got 4. Again, 360's got to do more. Then you've got the hunters. Now, hunters do 2 things. There's tactical hunting, which is just looking for a vacancy. Right? Now, you can say that the carers are going to get vacancies as well from existing clients, and I would do that. Some say the function of getting vacancies from clients is part of hunting, but I don't think it is. I think hunters are about new vacancies and new clients. Vacancies are tactical, clients are strategic. I know there's some crossover in that, I get it, but you know what I mean. So that's what the hunting function does. It's bringing new stuff into the business, and then on top of all of that is team leading. They might say, well, that's not a fulfillment function. Well, no. But if your 360 has got 1 or 2 people working for them, resources or something, then they've got a lead as well. So you've got 6 different functions: find, qualify, place, care, hunt, and lead. 360 has got to do 5 of those for sure, potentially 6. That's a really big ask, isn't it?
I think so. I think as well, some of them are sort of diametrically opposed. Very often the person who's going to be a good carer is somebody who's like very people orientated, very good at managing lots of relationships all in one go. Whereas a hunter, as a general rule, is very kind of one, focused, they're kind of opposite. A lot of people who are very caring, and then the really good 360s who hunt.
And they're rewarded in different ways as well, and their focus is different. So for example, a strategic hunter, long-term strategic hunter, is thinking in terms of months or even years. A tactical hunter or a carer is looking at the end of the month. Got to get some biz, got to make some money, got to get some biz. So not only is their mentality different, but also their visibility, their vision, their horizon is different. The way they're rewarded is different. So you're trying to get somebody. I mean, the thing with 360s is, and please, if you own a business, the chances are you're good at all of them. Not saying you as the owner aren't, but quite often people, 360s, are not very good at long-term client care. They're not interested in relationship management in the way that I've described. They just want a vacancy, which is why that people from that company had said that, because that's what they've been trying to do. And so that's great. If somebody's got a vacancy, great. But if not, well, I'm not interested, then on to the next. And it just makes clients feel devalued. It's like, well, you only want me for my money, for the business I can give you. And we all know that's true. That's why I come and see you for a coffee and take you to the cricket and everything, because you've got business you can give me. We all know that, but you don't have to shove it down their throats, do you?
No, I also think as well, it's very common if you're a hunter, you often, how many times or how many people do you know who work in recruitment who have that period where they're super, super busy doing fulfillment, and then they're fulfilled at their roles and they go, I've got nothing coming in for the next month. I've got nothing. I've got 0. Because it's so difficult to keep all of those plates spinning in one go.
Yeah, it's almost impossible for the average person to do that. And especially if they don't really like BD. I don't need to do it because I'm so busy. And then all of a sudden it all dries up. And you're right, 2 good months and a bad month is very common.
Yeah. Okay, Mike. So we do have a question from Lindsay here, which is, when you were speaking through the different functions, Lindsay asked how many good candidates will be happy going through that many people conversations before being presented for a role. And I just want you to clarify that we were talking about functions here, not people.
That's a good question, Lindsay. And that's not the question you wanted earlier, Kirsty. I know that, but that's a great question.
I wanted earlier.
Lead me into my next point. Thank you, Lindsay. Right. These are functions. 360 does them all. Okay. You can cut these functions into roles however you see fit. Okay, so very often there's effectively around fulfillment, there'll be 2 or 3 layers typically. And the smaller the business, the more each person does. It obviously makes sense. So you might say, supposing you're on your own, and you would say, well, I need a resourcer really, just to get me some CVs that match. Well, you would perhaps employ a UK-based or more likely offshore-based matcher. It's just going to match. So what we're going to do, they're going to find and match. And you get a load of CVs that look okay, but then you've got to ring them up and then you would do level 1 and level 2 qualification at the same time, and then you place them if they're suitable. Right? As you get bigger, chances are you'd have somebody in the UK to do that level 2 qualification. Because I tell you now, and you all know this as well, the more senior you become and the longer you've been in a business, the less you want to spend time talking to people who are a waste of time. What you actually want, if you're an account manager, because that's a role, an account manager is a role, not a function. As an account manager, I'm managing the account, so I'm getting the vacancies from the client. I'm looking after the client, taking them for lunch and building relationships, but I'm also doing the placement. Right? I want to be given CV candidates who match and basically been spoken to, and they're up for the role. They might not be suitable, they might not be serious, but they're up for a role, right? That's what I want. Don't spend my time talking to people that are just, oh, why am I talking to you, mate, right? So someone else has got to do that. And one of the things that you should think about in your own recruitment business is move everything down to the lowest possible pay grade without sacrificing quality and performance. So if somebody who gets paid less than you can do what you need done, then you should give it to them to do. And you focus on the things that they can't do, right? So in terms, to answer the question, typically you would have resources that would do the matching, and they don't come into contact with the client anyway, so that's fine. By the way, search companies are all organized like this, so it's not uncommon at all. And you can do exactly the same. In fact, increasingly, standard recruitment companies are doing this as well. Then you have a voice-based, so usually UK-based, or if you're in the United States, it could be someone in Mexico, which is fine, or the Philippines, who've got American accents. But so you then have these people who ring up and say, right, we've got this role, let me talk you through with it. Looks on paper like you'd some good, let me talk you through what it is and see if you're interested. And then, right, okay, sounds like you're interested. You need now to talk to the consultant who's managing this so they can answer any real detailed questions about the client and, you know, about the role itself and talk to you about it. Can I just schedule that meeting? I can just schedule it in right now. Okay, that's normally how it works. And so they've only spoken to 2 people really, and that's not bad. And then the placer, the account manager in this case, will then manage the process all the way through. So I don't think it's that onerous in answer to your question, Lindsay, but thank you very much for asking that.
Okay, Mike, we've had another couple of questions as well. So Martin's asked, how many roles would you break this into? And this is a bit of a piece of string kind of question.
It's a good question. Well, Martin, I think it does depend on the size business you are. And can I just take a moment out here, right? Because we've got a webinar, free webinar coming up. When is it, Kirsty? It's the end of February, isn't it?
It is on the 28th of February.
Right. And what we're going to do, it's on this subject, but what we're going to do is a composite case study. So it's not a real case study. I'm not sacrificing the secrets of a client. I've just taken a whole bunch of things that happens all the time when you go through this process. Forming roles is part of it, job description, all this sort of stuff. And we're going to go through a case study of how somebody turned from 360 all the way through to layered. Okay. And so these kind of questions will come out then in detail because I can explain in this fictitious example, which is kind of based on real stuff, exactly how you would do that. And I've got a screen which explains it all and we'll go through it. And so, by the way, if you want to come to that, if you've already, it's a bit previous, Kirsty.
Oh, sorry.
If you've already registered for this now, if you're watching this because you click the attend button, you don't need to worry. You're going to get an email invitation to it. You can ignore or you can come. Right, so don't worry. If you're watching this because you found it on YouTube or because you've found it on LinkedIn or something, all you need to do, thank you, Kirsty, is email 360webinar to mike@flair.qa, and we will just send you an invitation. You can read about it. If you like it, you can just register. It's a Zoom webinar. But I would recommend, if you're interested in what I'm saying today, that you come to that. And the reason we're doing that is we need to use a real example, and we don't have time to do that today. Yeah. But to answer the question anyway, Martin, since you asked it, it does depend on the size of company and where you're at and the kind of people that you've got as well. You need to look at the people you've got, what they can and can't do. But typically, in a small business, the owner would be the hunter because they're normally good at it, right? They would also do client care for the senior clients. They would have a relationship with all the high-value clients for sure because that's a security blanket. And then they may do the account management on some of the big accounts as well because it's a small business. They would then have consultants or account managers or people that would manage the smaller and less valuable clients themselves. and then probably a resourcer under that. Whether you outsource the matching to India or not, it's irrelevant as far as the client's concerned. I suggest that you do, quite frankly, because it's a no-brainer if you pick the right partner. And I think we've got a show on this, actually, Kirsty. We've done a show on this, haven't we? We've done
a couple of shows, yeah.
But the point is that kind of 3-4 layers is fine, into layers in terms of job roles is fine, but you build it up over time, as I will explain in the webinar.
Yeah, and just as an example, we've got Paul, who says that he splits his into 3: researcher, consultant, director.
There you go.
But
and the director, I'm guessing, in my view, the director would not only do all the governance for the business and all that malarkey that they have to do, but also they would be the breadwinners, the hunters. They would do most of the hunting. That's not to say that consultants can't do a bit of tactical hunting. That's fine. A bit short work, go and get some. But the more you make them dependent upon you to take work that you're giving them or take new clients, the more dependent they are, the less likely they are to leave.
And I think we are going to move on in a second about how we would transfer. But I think a big thing about layered is we talk about average people with the bell curve. But when you put them in a layered model, when they have just an area that they get to focus on and not worry about the things they don't like, they sort of become an expert in that area because they do nothing but it and they don't have to stress about everything else. So you basically take an average person and in your company, in your organization, they become an expert.
Well, that's interesting, really, Kirsty, because their average 360, that could be really good at client care or really good at hunting or really good at account management or really good at resourcing. I mean, these days, there's a new class of people out there, professional resources. That's all they want to be. One of our clients pays, I think, 50 or 60 grand for a resourcer. It's his search client, right? So, but it's worth every single penny because this guy can find anybody from anywhere because he's been doing it for so long. He's bloody awesome. And I think it's okay. I'll pay you a lot of money if you do the job. Can't make placements without candidates. If you can find candidates that nobody else is finding and you like that, carry on doing it. And I'll put a structure together. I know we're going to talk about commissions a bit later, but I'm going to put something together which rewards you for that. You don't have to do that. You can actually bring people through because that's the other benefit of having this model. You've got a career path for people moving through. So, and it's really cool to do that. Whereas 360, it's like, well, it's 360 now. Then you can be a team leader. God knows how that's going to work out. Good 360s tend to make bad team leaders, as we know. So I think there is that. You can be good at what you like doing and what you're good at. You can just do that. Be good at it. Be exceptional at it. And if you do aspire to be better and have a career, well, fine. We can train you in the next thing. And as soon as you're good at that, we'll make you that as well. It brings a whole new benefit, which is why I suspect the Americans do it. Because it keeps people and it keeps people happy. Stress drops, mental health gets better, your turnover of staff is less. Because when someone leaves and I say it's the money, half the time it's because they don't like doing business development or something, right? You make them be dependent upon you, and then that changes everything.
Okay, right. Now we've got the question that was asked earlier, which was from Luke, which is quite a big question. But he basically said that he doesn't believe in the 360 model and he's built 180, essentially a layered model out. He's asked if you should be a 360 until a certain point and then you move into the layered model.
Okay. That's very good. That does bring us to our next point, the conversion. Right. So almost all the projects I work on, they end up with a blended model. Some 360s and then some layered. And their decision is not to hire more new 360s, even if they come across one, because you think, well, I mean, you could do it, but actually, if I hire this person, then and maybe they're not as good at 360s as they tell me they are, and who knows? Or maybe they're a great 360 at the other company, but they were doing all this other stuff. They come here, we're not doing all that stuff, so they're not going to deliver, right? Maybe that, maybe whatever. Or maybe they're going to come be great for a bit and then go. Take a big chunk of business with them. But you might decide to hire 360s. I'm not against it. I'm not puritanical on this. But what your general policy is we don't hire 360s anymore. And the way, again, I'll go through this in the webinar because in the case study, this is how we implement it. But broadly speaking, you don't have a big bang. This is the thing that everybody is afraid of. On a Friday afternoon, we stop being like this. On a Monday morning, we start being like that. No. That, my friends, is the recipe for revolution, mass exodus, and disaster. We don't do that. It's not at all right. What we do is we start at one end or the other, and we gradually make things available. So you might start by saying, well, look, here's the thing. You could probably audit all of your people. Even if you only got 3 people, you can audit everybody in your team, and you know what they're good at, what they like, and what they don't. And people will tell you if you ask them half the time, right? So you already know the strengths and weaknesses of the team and what you'd like them to do more of and what you'd like them to do less of. So you might say, well, look, we moved to this model whereby you don't like BD, you're not really very good at it. You have several blank months where you haven't got business because you've spent too much time in fulfillment, and then you have to go and get some business, and it hasn't really worked out that way. By the way, if the market flattens, that gets worse because it gets harder to bring business in. So why don't you just concentrate on caring for the clients that you've got, making sure that the placement process is as smooth as possible for your clients. You're getting really good candidates, and you're managing that process of matching and qualifying of those candidates, and then you do that. Why don't you do that? And we'll just keep giving you new clients as we win them, and occasionally you'll get a vacancy from new clients as well, right? And then we'll say, yeah, let's do that then. Fine. But in many cases, it's like people have got this belief that 360 is the epitome of recruitment.
That they should be 360s.
That's where I need to be. I need to be 360 because that's what they think. They hate BD, or they hate dealing with candidates, but nonetheless, that's what they think, right? Well, fair enough then. It's okay. So what we'll do. Here's the thing. If you find yourself short of work, you can effectively buy a client from us. You can buy a vacancy from us. Not really paying money, by the way, but you're effectively cashing in on this availability that we have. We can win for you. The other end, you can do the same. You can say, look, tell you what, if you get too many vacancies, you can buy access to our resources, and you basically share the fee you pay for that person from the fee that you make, in the same way that you pay for getting that vacancy or that client in the first place from the fee that you make.
It's like internal split deals, isn't it? Kind
Split
of.
deals. Everybody does split deals. Come on, everybody does split deals. So this isn't an alien concept. If you're a member of the team network like we are, those guys make a big thing of it. Split deals all over the place. Everyone knows that. So you just have an internal splits, but it's baked in now. It's part of the process. It's not like the odd every now and again. And after a while, it just finds its own level. And the people who are genuinely good 360s will genuinely go and get their clients and then service them, right? Okay, their client care might be a bit suspect, and they might be a bit immediate. They might be a bit tactical. You'd have to think about that. But even those guys are going to benefit, because as part of this, so this is the layered fulfillment, but this is part of what we call a factory model. So there's going to be a lot more marketing being done, which the 360s will benefit from, right? They'll get it. And if they are a bit short of work, they can get some clients, they can pay for that and they can get it. So it actually makes the 360s life easier and better, more attractive for them. This is not abandoning them and pushing them to one side and say, you're out of here, your dinosaur's going. No, that's fine. You stay, we'll look after you. It's going to be better for you, right? But what it means is that people who are not really 360s at all can find their level. People that want to start and build up can do that. Now, the question was around 360. I'm going to answer that now. So if you've got a good 360, the chances are they're a good 360 because they're very good at business development. And also, not for everybody, there's also a very good chance they hate talking to candidates. That matching, basically. They don't mind talking to candidates. I don't mean, but it's that matching.
Lower level.
Level 1 qualification and matching, right? It's not really into that at all, right? So you say to them, well, I'll tell you what, and there's different ways of implementing this, and I'll talk through this in the webinar. But one of the methods is called a pod method. The other one is the service, but this is a pod level. Pod level basically says, well, we're going to build a little team around you, right? You're good at BD. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with you to build a little team. Now, good 360s do tend to make piss poor managers, really.
True that.
It's a sweeping statement, isn't it? And if you're in a business and you're a great 360, you might be a great manager as well. I was rubbish at management and still am, Kirsty. Don't say anything. Okay. Anyway, I just never was, so it's not my thing at all. But the company can do a lot of the management of people. A lot of the softer management things can be done by the business itself, so that the leader, the pod leader, which is a 360 turn pod leader, just focuses on hitting targets, basically. They're not doing the softer side of management. That's handled elsewhere, so that the staff are feeling cared for and their needs in terms of career development and training and coaching and support and everything being taken care of. The guy at the top is just saying, let's do this and let's make this happen, and these are the targets and everything. You don't have to be that way. If they're good at management, they can do it. But then you can build, and I'll be demonstrating this because in the webinar we're going to talk about a pod. We're not using the service model. We're going to use a pod, and they basically grow a little team. The pod leader, and if there's a deputy, which is a good idea, pod deputy, are rewarded on contribution. Contribution simply means that you take the revenue of the pod and subtract the direct costs of the pod. What's left is contribution, and that's what the commission is based on. Right. So they begin to think about, if I spend this, I've got to get this back in turn. Whereas in GP, it doesn't really equate. It's GP is GP. Right? No. You've got to be aware of the costs because you're building a pod and there's costs associated.
It sort of makes them owners of the business, doesn't it? It sort of makes them think like an owner of a business does, rather than just an employee who doesn't understand the higher function of it. Yeah,
and exactly. And in the example that we're going to do in the webinar, I'm going to go through what that really means in terms of things like share options and a whole bunch of other stuff as well, right? So you want those people tied in. They're not going to go anywhere. They're building pods. So the first business I had, for example, which was a company called Software Knowledge, 40 million turnover, which is, how much is that today, do you reckon, Kirst?
I think I did the maths recently. It was about 75 million.
75 million. That was made up of 7 pods. Okay. 5 of which were recruiters. The other 2, one was RPO and the other one was solutions-based, IT solutions-based. But there was 5 recruitment pods, each with a pod leader and each with a little team underneath them. Massively successful, obviously. So and the turnover of staff was tiny. It was like less than 3%.
Okay, Mike, I'm just going to have to interrupt because we've had a really good question come in, and then we want to talk about commission schemes as well. So I'm just going to interrupt slightly. So Jack has asked a really good question. In the past, he's attempted to move to a 360 model company into the layered model, but there were issues with client satisfaction as it took time for the resources to get up to the standard of profiles the 360s previously delivered, and issues re-earning potential of hunters, blah, blah, blah. What would you say to that?
Very simple answer. The carer, the account manager. Let's talk about roles now. Let's move away from functions. The account manager is the gatekeeper to the quality of the candidates that are submitted. If they're submitting candidates that aren't good enough, well, shame on them. Woe betide. And you measure that as part of the OKRs, the objectives and key results and KPIs. We measure that so we can see if that's happening, and you can see really early on. Coupled with that, massive amounts of training, right? You need to train up. Training is not a nice to have if someone isn't delivering. Training is a continual investment in your business. But the difference is you're only training in narrow things now, not the whole kit and caboodle. They call it laser training. You don't have to hire somebody to come in for the day and train everybody in everything. You can just have 2 hours online on this thing for the people that it's necessary for. It's a completely new world. So if your layered model is delivering bad CVs, it probably means that people are doing a job that they're not trained for, they're not ideally suited for, and the client carer, the account manager, is not that gatekeeper. They're letting stuff through that they shouldn't, and they need a stiff talking to.
Okay, fair enough. Now, Mike, it is in fact time for a message from our sponsors.
Oh, that's me, isn't it, really? I tell you what, I'll just explain on this because I've seen several people face-to-face recently and said, I love all your videos, I watch them all, I binge watch this, that, and the other, but I don't really know what you do. Okay, because we do focus on the quality all the time. So let me just tell you what we do, and then you'll know. So we are business growth consultants who know a lot about recruitment. So we have other clients who aren't recruiters, but we know how to scale a business. We know how the changes that you make, the sections of a business that you need in order to make that business grow. Whether it's 360, layered or blended, it doesn't really matter. That's only part of the factory. And we will work with you to build a scalable business that gives you the income, freedom, choice, and wealth that you're looking for from your business. So if you feel frustrated, if you feel alone, if you feel a little anxious, if you're not clear what to do and how to do it, or if you're a yo-yo company, come and speak to us and we can help you put that right and grow your business. Okay, back to the show.
Fantastic. Now, Mike, we are going to look at about 5 minutes on commission structures, but this question came in from Robert. Do you have comparisons between companies who run layered models to those who adopt a 360 model? Now, I'm guessing that's kind of result level.
Okay, right. So I haven't done an exhaustive study, But recently, we went out to a bunch of clients that we'd done work with in the past to get testimonials, because we were doing something and we needed testimonials. And on average, we're looking at a 40% increase in profits in a layered over a 360 model. And there's a bunch of reasons why that is. The teams tend to be more stable, and more stable teams tend to be more profitable. People are doing what they're best at, not a whole bunch of stuff that they're not best at. And they're not, if they lose somebody, they're only losing a function, which we can relatively easily replace. The best that we've seen, again, which came from this, I had someone that had a 100% increase in profit. Wasn't a small company. You're talking about a company that's nearly $1 million. It was an American company, nearly $1 million EBIT. They went from $500,000 to nearly $1 million in 1 year, and they made the change. And another one, who's a case study you can watch online if you want to. Kirsty can put the link into the comments for you. Matt Ellis, he trebled his profits and reduced his headcount by 20%. So I haven't done an exhaustive study. It's only, what's it, apocryphal, is it? Yeah, whatever. It's just observational, really. But they tend to be a lot more profitable and a lot more stable than the 360 for obvious reasons. Great question.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all the questions so far. Now, Mike, the last question I want to talk about before we kind of finish, we just got a couple of minutes, is commission. Because when it comes to this, like 360 is very easy to figure out the commission. Are you saying in a layered model it gets really overly complicated to pay people?
Well, no. I mean, we all do split deals, so we're familiar with this. Come on, we all know that, oh, well, okay, it's whatever you do on a split deal, it's 50% to you and 50% to you. So basically what you're doing is you're apportioning up the pot of money that you've allocated for commission. 360 gets it all, and then they get their share of that, whatever it is. Whereas in this case, you're divvying it up in certain ways. Now, we have a spreadsheet that we use with our clients. So it's a generic spreadsheet. Then I'm not the guy that does this, Pete does it. But what he then does is make that spreadsheet work for each company. You'd think it would work for everyone. No.
Everybody's
No. Every single one is different. So threshold or no threshold, accelerator, no accelerator. Sometimes you get, and again, it depends on the roles that you've got. Do you just have those three levels? It also depends how long, if somebody is a hunter brings in a client, how long do they receive revenue from that client before it stops and reverts all the way to the account manager? So there's some variables to it. But essentially at this level, and when we do the webinar to manage expectations, we're not going to spend the whole time talking about commission schemes. Pete's going to just do a headline thing on that when we do it. But ostensibly, there's only so much money to share out. And it's going to get shared out in the proportions that you want. And we'll be using the example, a particular one, but you can make it what it is so that people know that. Now, you might think, well, if I'm sharing, I'm getting less money. Yeah, but you're doing more of what you're good at. And that's why profits go up. You're doing more of the stuff you're good at, you're more efficient at. Somebody else does what they're good at. So you're building a business where more people are doing things that they're good at.
Yeah. So you get basically a smaller piece of a bigger pie. Isn't that how it works? Like the difference between a slice of a large pizza and the slice of an extra large pizza is twice as much. It doesn't seem like that much, but it is. So you're getting the smaller or the same sized piece of pie of a bigger pie in general.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And again, when you look at things like, you get a dud month because you didn't do any BD, it's a month lost. No commission, nothing, right? You don't get that. People actually earn more money usually, almost always. And if you do, I urge you to watch the Matt Ellis if you've not seen it already.
I will put the link.
The Matt Ellis show that we'll put in the description, because he explains how all this worked for him in real terms and what he got and why. I mean, his attrition rate just plummeted because people are earning more money and having a better life. I'll just stay there, So I think that it's a good question, but actually, if we think about commission being only sharing out the pizza, it's just a bigger pizza.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, thank you very much. And thank you everybody for the questions so far. We have come to the end of the show. So in a second, Mike, I'm going to come to you and do what we always do, which is the top tip. We've talked about a lot of things today. So if somebody is thinking about moving to a layered model from a 360, what's the first thing they should do? But before then, Mike, can we talk about the next show that we're running, which I believe is about using the telephone?
Yes, it's 2 weeks' time. It's very tactical. So this is more strategic for you. It's about thinking and imagining and beginning to plan and take ideas away. Very tactical, because I believe that 2024 is you're going to have to reach out more. Cold emails, I don't think so. Cold calls, not really, no. So, but how can you reach out and do the telephone if it's not a cold call? And if it is a pure cold call, how the heck can you do that effectively? So we've got Bobby Banerjee coming on. Between the two of us, I do a lot of calls because I like it, really. I enjoy it. And he teaches people how to do it. So we're going to have a great old thing. Hopefully we'll disagree about some things as well, because the audience love that.
Enjoy that.
They do. But the point is that we will be talking about calls. So you might, if you're interested in this, you might get some of your team to tune in as well. It might be useful for that, or you might like to watch it first and then share it with them later. It's up to you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. So Mike, it's time for that top tip now. People have been watching this and they're thinking, right, okay, layered model seems to be a winner for me. I'm in a 360 now. What's the first thing they should do? Because it can seem quite overwhelming, that change.
The very first thing that you should do right now is you know your people in your team, even if they've only got two, right? Figure out or write down or document their strengths and weaknesses, because you want to do more of their strengths and less of their weaknesses, because they'll be more effective and more efficient that way. They'll make more money for you. They'll be happier. They'll achieve more. They'll stay longer. They'll actually be part of a business that isn't a 9 to 5 business, right? So that's step one. And if you need to talk to them about it, you don't have to say you're thinking of going over to a layered or blended model, but you can talk to them, and you can, but you should know anyway already. You know the situation if you know them well enough. And so that's your starting point, because then you can begin to design a business which is real for you, not like an off a whiteboard that I'm showing you today. But if you check out the webinar, I'm not just saying it, we're really excited about it because it's realish, and it will tell you all those things there.
Fantastic. And just a reminder, if you are interested in the webinar, it is free, isn't it, Mike?
Yeah, free.
Of course, it's free. If you're registered for the LinkedIn Live already, if you've ticked attend, you don't need to do anything. But if you're watching this on recording, email 360webinar to mike@flair.co.uk, and Flair is spelled FLAIR for those who are listening.
And you can't access it unless you register. Not like this, you can just watch it on YouTube. We don't put the webinars on YouTube. The only way you can access it is register.
We do. Okay. Right, Mike. It's been a big old show. I very much do it. We've had some great comments today. So I want to say, first of all, thank you so much to everybody who's commented. Thank you. We always really enjoy it when everybody gets involved. And I want to say thank you to you, Mike, for just being fabulous and not mocking me so much when I was coughing.
Thank you very much for showing up as well. Glad you came involved.
You know, I know you needed me today. Okay. So we shall see everybody in 2 weeks' time.
Certainly will.